child presents to his pediatrician with symptoms of inattention, distractibility, impulsivity, and physical restlessness and is diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. He is prescribed Ritalin, which is a stimulant, Prozac for depression, Xanax for anxiety, and insomnia, because he also displays signs of depression and anxiety. Unfortunately, the side effects of Prozac are nausea, so he's also prescribed an antiemetic, which is anti-nausea. Now the child is on 4 medications for a disorder whose symptoms can manipulate that of other disorders, like poor nutrition, food allergy, digestive disorders, low blood sugar, sleep disorders, hearing problems, and environment. Children diagnosed with ADHD are being medicated for symptoms that can be relieved with non-pharmacological measures like therapy and diet restrictions. Much like many mental health disorders, there is no specific test to identify ADHD. According to Todd Elder, the assistant professor of economics at Michigan State, there is no neurological markers for ADHD such as a blood test, and experts disagree on its prevalence, fueling intense public debate about whether ADHD is underdiagnosed or overdiagnosed. According to the CDC, the number of boys diagnosed with ADHD is 13.2%, and girls are diagnosed at a rate of 5%. This means boys are being diagnosed twice as likely as girls. Why isn't this surprising? Well, ADHD is diagnosed by symptoms, reports, and rating scales that compare children to that of other children their age. And symptoms of ADHD include constant motion, squirming, fidgeting, making careless mistakes, losing things, not listening, and getting easily distracted. Some of these symptoms sound like a typical young boy who has lots of energy. Elder studied 12,000 children with a diagnosis of ADHD and examined the difference in medication rates between the youngest and the oldest in the class. The results concluded that the youngest children in each grade level were twice as likely to be prescribed stimulants compared to the older children in the grade level. A staggering 60% of the youngest kindergartners were more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD compared to the older kindergartners in the class. Younger children may act inappropriately compared to older children in the same age group. And for this fact, younger children are being diagnosed with ADHD more than the older children. Using school reports and comparing children's behaviors to that of older children's in the age group is not a proper tool in diagnosing ADHD in children. The common medication treatment for ADHD is Ritalin and Adderall. Ritalin and Adderall are stimulants and work by controlling brain impulses to regulate behavior and attention. They do this by influencing the neurotransmitters in the brain. Side effects of stimulants include decreased appetite, difficulty sleeping, stomachache, headache, increased blood pressure, and stunted growth, which is obviously a common concern for children of this age group because they're growing constantly. The long-term effects of stimulants like Ritalin aren't fully investigated and have been linked to heart attacks and strokes. Loose regulations on stimulants used to treat ADHD like Ritalin means children and teenagers have easier access to these drugs, which in return means easier access to abuse these drugs. When taking an excess or snorted stimulants that treat ADHD can produce euphoria and result in addiction. Stimulant abuse has also increased over the past 4 years. According to Redder, children who are inappropriately diagnosed with ADHD or those who have other mental health conditions may be at risk for mood disorders or aggressive behavior while taking this medication. About 20% of the 4.5 million children with ADHD are misdiagnosed. A child has a milk allergy, but the parents are unaware because he doesn't display alarming symptoms. The child is constantly exposed to the allergen, and his digestive system cannot properly digest the enzymes. He is placed in an environment where milk is given, snack, lunch, and dinner. He can't focus because his body is constantly under attack. He appears inattentive, possibly aggressive, and wants to constantly move to occupy himself from something other than the undesirable feeling of the body that cannot properly digest enzymes. But the child doesn't know any different than what he is feeling. Food allergies like this are not only go undiagnosed, but are also misdiagnosed. There are several different types of food allergies, but the two I'm going to talk about are type 1 and type 3. The type most people are familiar with is type 1, and this is the immediate allergic response, including rash, swelling, and trouble breathing. However, type 3 allergic reaction includes anxiety, depression, insomnia, aggressive behavior, excessive talking, memory loss, learning disorders, and attention deficit hyperactivity. The immune system takes a toll from the constant exposure of the food allergen. A study from Norway looked at 23 children who showed an abnormal level of peptides in their urine. This is seen in children who lack the enzyme used to break down certain proteins which are found in milk and gluten. The study found that consuming excess amount of these foods produced an opium-like effect which contributed to spaciness and impaired attention. After these children were put on a strict diet, which restricted milk and gluten products, their symptoms improved and their learning also improved. With this strict diet, the children's medications were discontinued. The children that remained on the diet were able to be medication-free. However, the children that didn't adhere to the diet had immediate return of symptoms and were put back on the medication. However, ADHD-like symptoms are not just contributed to digestive disorders. There are many disorders that and conditions that exhibit the signs and symptoms of ADHD. For example, sleep disorders. A lack of sleep at night will equate to difficulty concentrating, following directions, a decrease in short-term memory, and poor communication. Hearing problems. Children with hearing problems may look like they're not paying attention due to their inability to fully hear. They may present as unfocused and communicate poorly. A child with low blood sugar may be aggressive, hyperactive, and have the inability to sit still and concentrate. A child's environment can also manipulate the symptoms of ADHD. Children who don't have structured home environments are going to struggle to concentrate and follow directions in a structured environment like school. ADHD is diagnosed based on symptoms, therefore children need to be tested for other disorders before a label of ADHD is given and stimulant medications are prescribed. Before a pediatrician jumps to ADHD, a nutrition, digestion, allergy, sleep, hearing, and sight evaluation should take place. For a nutrition evaluation, a nutritionist might limit the intake of processed foods and drinks, limit sugar, soda, gluten. They also may include a diet with healthy fats, lean proteins, natural colored vegetables, minimal fruits, and organic if possible. A digestion evaluation will include a nutrition deficiency assessment, GI health assessment, a bioenergy feedback scan may also be ordered. A complete evaluation by a pediatric ophthalmologist for eyesight and a complete evaluation by an audiologist for hearing should also be done, as well as an allergy eval and a sleep evaluation. It costs about $15,000 a year to treat somebody with ADHD, and close to 1 million children are being misdiagnosed with ADHD every year. That means if every child of the 1 million that are being misdiagnosed were given prescriptions and being treated for ADHD, that would be close to $14 billion being spent that isn't even fixing the problem. So instead, physicians and pediatricians need to look at these other causes. Close to 1 million children are being misdiagnosed with ADHD every year. That means that 1 million children are walking around with a disorder that is contributing to symptoms of hyperactivity, poor concentration, a decrease in memory, and poor communication that is not being treated. ADHD symptoms can be linked to a number of disorders, all of which harmful stimulant medications won't fix. ADHD does not have a definite test to aid in its diagnosis. Instead, children are diagnosed based on symptoms, reports, rating skills that compare children to other children their age. And as I discussed earlier, Elder found fault in diagnosing children in this fashion with his study. Instead of jumping to a diagnosis of ADHD by using the diagnosis tools currently in place, all of the conditions and disorders that have the potential to display the same symptoms should be ruled out. And that's it.
That was a lot longer
That I should have done.
Well, okay.
All right, thank you.
Finished? So.